I was 26 years old when I watched a Mongolian giant lift Bruce Lee off the stage in front of 4,000 people. I am 78 now. I have not told this story in 52 years. The doctors told me last month, pancreatic cancer, stage 4. They gave me 14 months, maybe 18 if I am lucky. I have not been lucky in 52 years. So I am telling it now, while my voice still works, while my memory still holds the night together. My name is Wai-keung. In September 1972, I was the youngest festival organizer in 47 years of the Hong Kong Mid-Autumn celebration. My father organized that festival for 31 years before me. He died of a heart attack in March of 1972. He was 64 years old. He fell in our family kitchen on Nathan Road while pouring tea. The cup broke in 3 pieces. My mother was the one who found him. She called me at the festival office. I was eating noodles when the phone rang. I have not eaten noodles in that office since. The committee gave me my father's job 2 weeks after his funeral. I was on probation. They told me I had 6 months to prove I could carry the family name. They told me if the festival went badly, they would give the position to a man named Chung Yuk Lin, who had been waiting 11 years for it. On the 3rd night of the 1972 festival, September 23rd, at 8:46 p.m., I almost lost everything my father had built. Then a small man in a black tang suit walked through the crowd toward the stage. The crowd went silent. They thought he was lost. They thought he was a tourist. They were wrong. His name was Bruce Lee. He was 31 years old. He weighed 138 pounds. He carried a cup of tea in his right hand. The cup did not spill, not once. He drank from it as he walked. The steam rose from the cup into the September night air. What happened in the next 4 minutes and 11 seconds is why I never organized another festival after 2008. It is why a Mongolian wrestling champion named Batbayar Ganbold retired 6 weeks later at the height of his career. It is why I still keep a folded photograph in my wallet, the only photograph that survived from that night. I will show it to you before this is over. But first, you have to understand the world we were living in. September 1972. Hong Kong was still a British colony. The British had ruled for 130 years. They controlled the police, the courts, the schools, the postal service, the radio stations, and the newspapers. China was 6 years deep into the Cultural Revolution. Mao Zedong's Red Guards had killed an estimated 2 million Chinese people in the previous decade. The border at Lo Wu was patrolled by soldiers on both sides. Refugees swam across Deep Bay every week. Some made it, most did not. Mongolia was a Soviet satellite state. The Mongolian People's Republic answered to Moscow on every decision larger than a wedding. Cold War lines ran through every handshake in our city. A Chinese man speaking to a Soviet citizen in 1972 Hong Kong was an event the British Colonial Intelligence Service noted in a file. Bruce Lee was 4 weeks away from the release of Way of the Dragon. He had filmed it in Rome that summer. He was already the most famous man in Hong Kong, maybe the most famous Chinese man in the world. He lived at 41 Cumberland Road, Kowloon Tong, in a 2-story house with a small garden. He lived there with his wife, Linda Emery Lee, their son Brandon, age 7, and their daughter Shannon, age 3. The garden had a koi pond. Bruce had built it himself in 1971. He attended the Mid-Autumn Festival every year, quietly, in the back, with his children on his shoulders. He brought no bodyguards. Most years, fewer than 30 people recognized him in the crowd. He liked it that way. He told a Chinese newspaper reporter in August 1972, "The festival is for families. I am a family man before I am anything else." The Mid-Autumn Festival is the second most important holiday in Chinese culture, after Lunar New Year. Families gather, they eat moon cakes, they light paper lanterns, they watch the moon. The festival celebrates a 3,000-year-old Chinese myth about a woman named Chang'e who flew to the moon. Children ask their parents to point at the moon and tell them the story. Victoria Park has hosted the largest public celebration in Hong Kong since 1947. We expected 40,000 attendees over 3 nights that year. We had 11 food vendors, 9 lantern makers, 4 storytellers, and a permanent stage that my father had commissioned in 1959. The committee approved the program in July of 1972. Lion dances on Friday, Cantonese opera on Saturday, a magic act from Macau on Sunday, a traditional storyteller from Guangzhou, and, for the first time in festival history, a wrestling exhibition. The Soviet Cultural Exchange Program had offered us a Mongolian wrestler. The Hong Kong Chamber of Commerce wanted the goodwill. They had business interests in the Soviet Union they were trying to expand. They paid $8,000 US for a 3-night appearance, a sum that in 1972 Hong Kong could buy a 600-square-foot apartment in Kowloon. I was told the wrestler would perform a traditional Burke demonstration. He would wrestle 2 trained partners flown in from Ulaanbaatar. The crowd would clap. The partners would bow. The performance would last 14 minutes per night. That is not what happened. On the first night, September 21st, the Mongolian arrived at the stage without partners. His name was Batbayar Ganbold. He stood 7 feet 2 inches tall. He weighed 380 pounds. His head reached the second row of stage lights. The lighting director had to adjust 3 lamps before the performance could begin. His translator was a Soviet embassy attaché named Andrei Volkov. Volkov was 34 years old, blonde, thin, and wore a brown suit too small for his shoulders. Through Volkov, Batbayar told my floor manager he would not perform a fixed exhibition. He would issue an open challenge. Any man in the audience. $500 Hong Kong dollars to anyone who could last 60 seconds without being pinned to the stage. I was at the south gate when this happened. By the time my walkie-talkie reached me and I ran to the stage, 3 things had already gone wrong. First, a 6'4" Royal Hong Kong police officer had volunteered. His name was Sergeant Liu Tak-shing. He was 31 years old. He had been a Hong Kong amateur wrestling champion in 1965. He lasted 11 seconds. They carried him off the stage with a broken collarbone and a hairline fracture of his right scapula. Second, a 240-pound Australian merchant marine had volunteered. His name was Daniel Connor. He was a sailor on a freighter docked at the Wai-keung container terminal. He lasted 6 seconds. They carried him off with a broken arm in 2 places. The St. John ambulance team treated him on the stage before transport. Third, the South China Morning Post photographer, Patrick Eng, had captured both injuries on film. He filed 3 photographs to the Sunday edition. The next morning's newspaper called Batbayar a Soviet circus act dishonoring the Chinese festival. The headline ran across page 2 in 36-point bold type. Volkov showed Batbayar the article over breakfast at the Mandarin Oriental. Volkov told him to ignore it. He told Batbayar that journalists were paid to insult foreigners and that the readers would forget by Monday. Batbayar didn't ignore it. On the second night, September 22nd, he issued the same challenge. 2 more volunteers, 2 more injuries. The first volunteer was a Chinese university student named Wang Chi-ming. He lasted 8 seconds, broken jaw. The second was a German tourist named Klaus Brenner, who had wrestled at Hamburg University in the 1960s. He lasted 14 seconds. Concussion. The crowd booed for the first time in 25 years of festival history. Mothers were covering their children's eyes. Old men were spitting on the ground. One elderly woman in the 3rd row threw a mooncake at the stage. It struck Batbayar's shoulder. He laughed. I was 26 years old. My career was 14 hours away from being over. By the morning of September 23rd, the 3rd night, I had called the Hong Kong Chief Secretary's office 4 times. I asked for emergency authority to cancel the wrestling exhibition. I told the Assistant Secretary that the festival would not survive a 3rd night of injuries. The Chief Secretary's office refused. The Soviet embassy had filed a diplomatic complaint about my second call. They told me to let the 3rd night proceed. They told me if the 3rd night went the same way as the first 2, I would not be permitted to organize the festival in 1973. The committee chairman, Mr. Tang Pak-fu, called me at 2:47 p.m. He told me my father would be ashamed. He hung up. I sat in my office at the festival headquarters on Causeway Road. I drank cold tea. I watched the clock move from 2:50 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. I did not move. I did not know who Batbayar Ganbold really was. I did not know about Damdin Suk. Batbayar Ganbold was born on March 8, 1944, in Kovd province in western Mongolia. The province sits at the foot of the Altai Mountains. The winters reach -40 degrees Celsius. The summers carry dust storms that last 3 days at a time. His father was a horseman. His father's name was Ganbold Sukbatar. His father owned 47 horses, 200 sheep, and 3 camels. His father was killed by Soviet collectivization police on July 14, 1949. The Soviet authorities were forcing private herders to surrender their animals to state collective farms. Ganbold Sukhbatar refused. The collectivization police shot him in front of his family. They took the horses, the sheep, and the camels. They left the camels' bells in the dirt. Batbayar was 5 years old. He watched it happen. He picked up one of the camels' bells. He kept that bell for the rest of his life. It was in his hotel room at the Mandarin Oriental in 1972. Volkov mentioned it in his 1991 statement to me. Batbayar's mother, a woman named Setseg, raised 4 sons in a single ger on the steppe. The ger was 16 feet across. The 4 boys slept on the same felt mat. Setseg traded her wedding silver for flour during the winter of 1950. 2 of Batbayar's brothers died of pneumonia before age 10. The 3rd brother, Munk, survived to adulthood and worked as a shepherd until his death in 1989. By age 12, Batbayar stood 6 feet 1 inch tall. By age 16, he stood 6 feet 9. His final height of 7 feet 2 inches was reached at age 19. He had to special order his boots from a leather worker in Ulaanbaatar. His shirts were sewn from 2 regular shirts cut and joined. He entered traditional bok tournaments at age 14. Bok is the Mongolian word for wrestling. It is one of the 3 traditional Mongolian sports, alongside horse racing and archery, performed at the annual Nardam festival every July. Batbayar was undefeated through provincial level by age 16. He won the Coved Province Championship that year. He was the youngest provincial champion in 47 years. National champion at 18. The Soviet Sports Authority sent him to Ulaanbaatar for international training. Through the late 1960s, his record reached 247 matches, 0 losses, 219 wins by submission in under 90 seconds. His longest match lasted 14 minutes. His shortest lasted 4 seconds. His monthly Soviet stipend was 47 rubles. In 1968, Mongolian purchasing power, that was enough to feed 2 adults, but not a family. To support his mother and his brother Munk, he supplemented his income through carnival exhibitions in Eastern Europe. From 1969 to 1971, he wrestled bears in Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and East Germany. The bears were old performing bears who had been raised in captivity. He never lost to the bears either. He told Volkov once that he hated the bear matches because the bears were tired and old, and he could see in their eyes that they wanted to die. But there was a story Batbayar carried with him that nobody in Hong Kong knew about. A story he had told no one outside his family. In 1968, Batbayar killed his sparring partner. The man's name was Damdin Suk. He was 22 years old. He was 5 feet 11 inches tall. He weighed 190 pounds. He had wrestled since age 7. He was married to a woman named Oyuna Bat Erdeen. They had a 6-month-old son named Bayar. They lived in a 1-room apartment on Peace Avenue in Ulaanbaatar. Damdin and Batbayar trained together at the Ulaanbaatar Wrestling Academy. They had trained together for 14 months. On April 17, 1968, during a routine throw, Damdin's neck broke. He died on the mat at 11:47 a.m. The Soviet Sports Authority ruled the death accidental. 3 witnesses confirmed the throw was a standard practice movement. Batbayar wept on the mat for 6 hours. He refused to leave. They had to remove him by force. Batbayar paid Oyuna and Bayar from his wrestling earnings every month for the rest of his life. The first payment was 18 rubles in May 1968. The payments continued until his death in 2003. He carried a photograph of the boy in his wrestling boots, folded inside the leather sole, where his foot touched the photograph every step. He had never met the boy. In 5 years of monthly payments, he had not visited Coved to meet Damdin's son. He could not bring himself to face Oyuna. He could not bring himself to look at the boy who carried Damdin's eyes. The man who came to the Mid-Autumn Festival on September 19, 1972, was carrying a 4-year secret in the bottom of his shoe. I did not know any of this. Bruce Lee did. At 8:34 p.m. on September 23rd, my walkie-talkie crackled. The security supervisor at Gate 4 said 5 words I will never forget. Mr. Lee just walked in. I asked him to repeat it. He said it again. Mr. Lee, Bruce Lee. He just came through gate 4 with 2 children. I was at the side of the main stage. Batbayar was already on the stage. The third night's crowd was the largest of the 3. 4,000 people pressed into Victoria Park's central viewing area. The chant was already building. Iron Mountain, Iron Mountain. The translation Volkov had given the announcer was that Batbayar's nickname meant Strong Hill. Volkov had translated it wrong. The Mongolian word for Batbayar's nickname is Tomor Ul, which translates literally as Iron Mountain. We were chanting the wrong name. None of us knew. The mistake stayed in the festival records for 19 years until a Mongolian historian corrected it in a 1991 academic paper. A Royal Hong Kong auxiliary officer had already volunteered for the third night's challenge. His name was Constable Ho Wing Fai. He was 28 years old. He had wrestled in the Hong Kong Police Academy. He lasted 9 seconds. They carried him off with a separated shoulder. The crowd booed. Then the crowd went silent. I looked up from my walkie-talkie at 8:46 p.m. and saw the crowd parting like water around a stone. A small man in a black tang suit was walking toward the stage. He carried a cup of tea in his right hand. The cup did not spill. I was 11 feet from the stairs when he passed me. He looked at me as he walked. He nodded once. He did not stop. The crowd recognized him 3 seconds before he reached the stairs. The chanting started in the back row. Li Xiu Lung, Li Xiu Lung, Little Dragon, his Chinese name. The chant moved forward through the 4,000-person crowd like a wave breaking on a beach. By the time Bruce Lee reached the top of the 4 wooden stairs, all 4,000 voices were chanting his name. Batbayar Ganbold did not understand a word of Cantonese. He thought the crowd was chanting for him. He raised both his arms. The crowd grew louder. Batbayar laughed. A loud, throat-deep laugh. He turned to the announcer and said, in Russian-accented English, "This is a joke." The announcer froze. The announcer's name was Wai-keung. He was 41. He had announced 11 Mid-Autumn festivals before this one. He told me later, in 1991, that he had wet himself on the stage at this moment. He stood very still so the crowd would not see. I will tell you what I saw next. Bruce did not respond to him. He did not look at him. He walked to the announcer's table. He set his teacup down. He removed his outer jacket. He folded it once, set it next to the teacup. The folding took 4 seconds. He folded it carefully, the way a man folds a shirt that his wife has ironed for him. Underneath the jacket, he wore a thin black t-shirt. His arms were not impressive. The announcer described him later in a 1991 interview. He looked like a school teacher, not a fighter. The crowd was chanting, and I was looking at his arms thinking, this man is going to die in 30 seconds. Bruce turned to face Batbayar. He walked to within 4 feet of him. He spoke in clear English, slowly, loud enough that I heard every word from 11 feet away at the side curtain. "I will not fight you. I will let you lift me. You will set me down within 90 seconds. We will both walk off this stage with our reputations." 22 words. Volkov did not translate them. I learned years later that Volkov had recognized Bruce Lee from a poster in the embassy lobby. He was paralyzed with shock. He stood at the side of the stage with his mouth open. He had seen The Big Boss 3 times in a Moscow theater in 1971. He had told his colleagues at the embassy that Bruce Lee was the most important Chinese cultural figure of the decade. He had not believed he would ever see him in person. Batbayar laughed again. He spat on the stage. He stepped forward. He grabbed Bruce by the front of his t-shirt. He lifted him 2 feet off the ground. The crowd gasped as one voice. I have organized 19 festivals in my life. I have heard 4,000-person crowds gasp before. Never like that. It was a single sound from a single throat, as if the city itself had inhaled. And in that gasp, I saw something on Bruce Lee's face I have never seen on any human face since. It was not anger. It was not fear. It was sadness. He was sad for Iron Mountain. He knew what was coming. He knew what he was about to do. And he did not want to do it. It was 8:51 p.m. The fight was 4 minutes and 11 seconds away from being over. Batbayar Ganbold had 4 minutes and 11 seconds left in his 247-match career. In the first minute, Bruce did nothing. He hung in the air, 2 feet off the stage, suspended by his t-shirt in Batbayar's left fist. His feet did not kick. His arms did not flail. His hands rested at his sides. He looked relaxed, the way a man looks when he is being lifted by a friend. Batbayar shook him, 3 times. Hard. Bruce's head moved with each shake. He did not resist. I was watching from the side curtain. My hands were shaking. My walkie-talkie was on the ground. I had dropped it without noticing. A festival assistant named Mei Ling picked it up and handed it back to me. I did not take it from her. She set it on the curtain rope and walked away. At 1 minute 8 seconds, Bruce slowly raised his right hand. He touched Batbayar's wrist with 2 fingers. He applied pressure to a specific point on the radial nerve. I have spoken to martial arts experts about this since. The point is called leak, the broken sequence. It is 1.5 inches above the wrist crease, on the radial side. Pressure on leak causes the flexor digitorum to spasm. The grip releases involuntarily. Wing Chun masters call it one of the 36 vital points. Bruce Lee's teacher, Ip Man, taught the location of leak to Bruce in 1957, when Bruce was 17. Batbayar's grip did not release, but it flickered. The fingers in his left fist twitched once. Bruce dropped 1/2 inch. Iron Mountain re-gripped immediately. Most of the crowd did not see it. The front row saw it. The cheer started in row 1 and spread. By the second minute, 4,000 people knew Iron Mountain had flinched. Iron Mountain did not know. In the second minute, Batbayar pulled Bruce closer to his face. He spoke in Mongolian. By this point, Volkov had recovered from his shock. He had moved to the front of the stage. He shouted the translation in English to the announcer. He says he could break your spine right now. The announcer translated it to Cantonese. The crowd went silent again. Bruce smiled. He spoke 9 words in clear English. You could. You won't. Your son's mother needs you. I am going to stop here for a moment, because this is the part I did not understand for 11 years. Bruce Lee said the word, son. He said the words, your son's mother. Batbayar had no son. Batbayar had no wife. Batbayar had not married. Batbayar had not fathered any children. The Soviet records confirmed this in 1972, in 1982, and again in 1992, when the Soviet records became public after the collapse. Bruce Lee was talking about Damdin Suk's son. Bruce knew about Damdin. Bruce knew about the killing in 1968. Bruce knew about Oyuna. Bruce knew about Bayar. How? I would not learn the answer to that question for 11 more years. In the third minute, Batbayar's face changed. I will describe it the way I saw it from 11 feet away. His eyes went wet. The biggest man I had ever seen in my life. 7 feet 2 inches, 380 pounds, 247 wins. And his eyes went wet on a stage in front of 4,000 strangers. He did not lower Bruce. Not yet. But he stopped shaking him. The shaking stopped at 2 minutes 14 seconds and never resumed. His left arm, the arm holding Bruce, began to tremble. Not from weight, from something else. At 3 minutes 18 seconds, the title payoff arrived. Bruce reached up. He placed his right palm flat against Batbayar's chest, over the heart. He spoke 1 sentence in Mongolian, 7 words, or 5 words, depending on how the language compresses. Volkov did not translate it. The announcer did not translate it. The crowd did not understand it. Batbayar stopped moving completely. The 4,000-person crowd went silent. I have never heard 4,000 people be that quiet. Not at a funeral, not at a wedding, not anywhere. The silence was the loudest sound I have ever heard. A child somewhere in the back row dropped a paper lantern. I heard it tear. From 80 feet away. Through 4,000 silent bodies. I heard the paper tear. I learned what Bruce said in 1983. 11 years later. I will tell you in a moment. In the 4th minute, Batbayar set Bruce down, slowly, the way a man sets down a sleeping child. His hands moved with care. When Bruce's feet touched the stage, Batbayar stepped back 3 paces. He turned to face the crowd. He bowed deeply, not to Bruce, to the audience. He held the bow for 6 seconds. Then he spoke in broken English, the first English the crowd had heard him speak. I am sorry. The match is over. Mr. Lee is winner. He did not collect his $500 prize. He did not collect his $8,000 fee. He walked off the stage at 4 minutes and 11 seconds. He did not look back. Bruce picked up his teacup, drank the last of it, bowed to the crowd, picked up his folded jacket, walked down the 4 wooden stairs. The 4,000-person crowd stood in silence as he left. No applause, no cheering. It was reverence. They knew they had seen something they could not name. I still cannot name it. Batbayar returned to the Mandarin Oriental Hotel that night at 11:47 p.m. He sat alone at the bar in the lobby. The bar was called the Captain's Bar. He drank 3 vodkas. The bartender was a Filipino man named Roberto, who had worked the night shift for 14 years. Roberto told me in 1989, when I tracked him down for an interview, that Batbayar said only one thing the entire night. He said it in Russian. Roberto did not understand Russian. He wrote it down phonetically on a napkin and asked a Russian guest the next morning to translate. The translation was, "I have been hungry for 4 years. Tonight, a man fed me." Volkov found him at 12:14 a.m. He was crying. Volkov tried to ask him questions. Batbayar refused to speak. The next morning, September 24th, at 6:14 a.m., a messenger arrived at the Mandarin Oriental. He delivered an envelope to room 814. Inside the envelope was a single photograph. The photograph was of a 5-year-old boy. The boy was named Bayar Suk. The photograph had been taken 2 weeks earlier in Sukbata Square in Ulaanbaatar. The boy was wearing a blue jacket. He was holding a wooden horse. He was looking up at the camera with a confused expression. The photographer had asked him to smile. He had not smiled. On the back of the photograph, in Bruce Lee's handwriting, in Mongolian transliteration, were 12 words. "He looks like his father. Go home and be his father." Volkov gave me a copy of that photograph in 1991, after he defected to Hong Kong following the Soviet collapse. He had kept it for 19 years. He had carried it through 3 Soviet customs inspections by hiding it inside the lining of his suitcase. He told me he kept it because he believed it was the most important document of the entire Cold War. I am inclined to agree with him. How did Bruce Lee get a photograph of Dam Din Suk's son? He hired a private investigator in Ulaanbaatar. The investigator was named Batbayar Ganbold. He was 47 years old in 1972. He was a former Mongolian intelligence officer who had been forced into early retirement in 1968 for refusing to spy on Buddhist monks. He worked as a private investigator after that. He was the only private investigator in Ulaanbaatar in 1972. He worked from a small office above a tea shop near the State Department store. Bruce paid him 1,400 Hong Kong dollars through a Hong Kong intermediary named Mr. Ho Chuk Yan. Mr. Ho was a tea importer who had business contacts in Mongolia. Bruce had met him at a Hong Kong Chamber of Commerce dinner in August 1972. Bruce had asked him over dinner, "Do you know anyone in Mongolia who can find a person?" Mr. Ho had said yes. The investigator photographed Bayar Suk at a playground in Sukbata Square on September 7th, 1972. The boy was there with his mother. The photograph took 4 minutes to capture. The investigator used a long lens camera from 60 feet away. The boy never knew he had been photographed. Bruce Lee had been planning that 4-minute conversation for 16 days. He did not walk into our festival by accident. He walked in to save Iron Mountain. Batbayar Ganbold flew back to Mongolia on September 25th, 1972. He did not speak to Volkov on the flight. Volkov told me later that Batbayar held the photograph in his hand for the entire 14-hour journey. He did not put it in his pocket. He did not put it in his bag. He held it. He resigned from the national wrestling team on October 14th, 1972. The Soviet Sports Authority did not understand. They sent 3 officials to interview him. They threatened to revoke his stipend. They threatened to charge him with desertion of state duty. He refused to explain. He returned to Kovet province on October 19th, 1972. He found Oyuna and Bayar living in his old family ger. His mother Tsetseg had taken them in after Dam Din's death. Tsetseg was 71 years old. She was nearly blind. She had been waiting for her son to come home for 4 years. Batbayar proposed marriage to Oyuna in November 1972. She refused. She told him, "I will not marry the man who killed my husband. But you may live near us. You may help us." He built a smaller ger 200 meters from theirs. He cared for Bayar like a son, without claiming to be one. He taught him to ride horses at age 5. He taught him to read at age 6. He taught him to wrestle at age 8, but only the gentle buck techniques, never the hard throws. In 1974, when Bayar was 6 years old, Batbayar adopted him legally. Oyuna agreed to the adoption when Bayar's biological grandfather, Damdin's father, a man named Suk Bat, died of a stroke, and Bayar needed a male guardian under Mongolian law. Bayar called Batbayar uncle his entire childhood. Batbayar told him the truth in 2003. On December 8, 2003, in a Kovd hospital, with 47 minutes left in his life, Batbayar Ganbold told Bayar Suk, then 35 years old, the full story. He told Bayar that he had killed Bayar's father in 1968. He told Bayar that he had been ready to kill again on a stage in Hong Kong in 1972. He told Bayar that a Chinese man named Bruce Lee had said 7 words in Mongolian that had stopped him. He told Bayar what those 7 words were. I learned what those 7 words were in 1983 when Volkov first told me the translation. He had finally remembered them. He had blocked them out of his mind for 11 years because he had not been able to translate them in real time on the stage, and he had felt ashamed. In 1983, he was attending a diplomatic conference in Geneva. He drank too much wine at a reception. He told an Australian reporter the story. The reporter did not believe him. The reporter did not publish the story. But Volkov, having said it out loud once, was finally able to remember. The 7 Mongolian words Bruce Lee said with his palm on Batbayar's heart were, "Damdin's son needs a man who can come home." That is the English. The Mongolian is shorter, 5 compressed words. But the meaning is the same. The most violent thing I have ever witnessed in my life was a 138-pound man saying 5 Mongolian words to a 380-pound stranger on a stage in Hong Kong in 1972. It broke a 4-year silence. It ended a 247-match career. It gave a 5-year-old boy a father. Bruce Lee returned to his Cumberland Road home that night at 10:14 p.m. Linda Lee Cadwell was awake. She told me in a 1985 letter, yes, I wrote to her in 1984, and she replied, that Bruce ate dinner alone in the kitchen. He ate steamed rice and a piece of fish. He did not speak. Linda asked him how the festival was. He said one sentence, "I think I helped a man go home." Then he went to his study. He wrote in his black leather notebook for 23 minutes. Page 73, dated 9/23/72. The notebook is now in the Bruce Lee Foundation archive in Seattle, Washington. It is not on public display. The foundation has made it available only to credentialed researchers. I was granted access in 1996. I copied the entry by hand. The entry reads, "A man with no son to come home to is the most dangerous opponent. A man with a son to come home to is the most willing student. Tonight, I gave Iron Mountain a son. He gave me back something I had forgotten, that mercy is the highest form of skill." 27 words. Bruce Lee died 9 months later in Hong Kong on July 20, 1973. He was 32 years old. He did not tell this story to anyone. He did not speak of Iron Mountain. He did not speak of the festival. The black leather notebook entry was the only record he ever made. Linda Lee Cadwell found the entry 6 years after his death in 1979, while she was preparing materials for the Bruce Lee Foundation archive. She did not understand it. She thought Iron Mountain was a metaphor. She did not connect it to the Mongolian wrestler until I wrote her in 1984 and explained. She replied to my letter on March 14, 1985. The letter is in my safe deposit box at HSBC, Central. I have made 1 copy for this video. You will see it on screen now. She wrote, "Mr. Chan, thank you for the story. I have been wondering what the notebook entry meant for 6 years. Bruce never spoke of it. He believed real mercy was a private act. I think he would not want this story told, but I think he would understand why you have to tell it. Bruce loved Hong Kong. He loved the festival. He loved children. He would have done it again. Please give my regards to Mr. Ganbold if you are ever in contact with him. Tell him Bruce thought of him often." I did not give her regards to Batbayar. I did not have his address. I never saw him again. He died 18 years later. He never knew Linda had asked after him. I have organized 19 festivals since that night. None of them were as important. Not because of what happened on the stage, because of what Bruce taught me in 4 minutes. He taught me that the strongest man in the room is the one who knows what the other man is afraid to lose. That is not strength. That is something else. I have not found a word for it in 52 years. I retired in 2008. The committee chairman, Mr. Tang Pak Fu, the same man who told me my father would be ashamed, gave a speech at my retirement dinner. He said I had organized the most successful festivals in Hong Kong history. He said my father would have been proud. I did not respond. I drank tea. I went home. My wife Wai-keung died in 2019. Pancreatic cancer. The same cancer I have now. We were married for 54 years. She knew this story. She was the only person I ever told. She made me promise to tell it before I died. I'm keeping the promise now. My daughter May lives in Vancouver. She is 49 years old. She's a pharmacist. She has 2 children. My son Wai-ho lives in London. He is 47 years old. He is a banker. He has 3 children. They will not be at my funeral. I have asked them not to come. They have busy lives. They have children of their own. I do not want them to fly across the world for an old man's burial. The funeral will be small. 2 friends, a Buddhist monk. The festival committee will send flowers. I have one thing left to do before the cancer finishes me. Batbayar Suk is alive. He is 57 years old. He is a school teacher in Coved Province, Mongolia. He teaches Mongolian literature to 11-year-olds. He has 3 children. He has named his oldest son, Damdin, after his biological father. He has named his second son, Batbayar, after the man who raised him. He has named his daughter Bruce. He has agreed to be filmed. He has a question he never got to ask Bruce Lee. He wants to ask it to the camera. He will sit in this chair next month. He will tell you what his uncle, the man who killed his real father, the man who raised him, told him in his final hour on December 8, 2003. The 7 Mongolian words Bruce Lee said in 1972 were not the only words. There were 4 more. Iron Mountain remembered them for 31 years. He told Bayar in his final hour. They are the reason Bayar is alive today. They are the reason Bayar's children carry the names they carry. I cannot say them on camera. They are not mine to say. Bayar will say them next month. I am 78 years old. I have 14 months, maybe 18. I am unfolding the photograph now. The only photograph that survived from that night. Lee Tatming took 47 photographs at Victoria Park on September 23, 1972. He developed 46 of them in his darkroom in Mongkok. They burned in a 1981 fire. The fire was caused by a faulty electrical wire in the developing tray. Lee Tatming lost 23 years of photography in 14 minutes. He never recovered. He died of a heart attack in 1986. This one was in my wallet that day. You can see Bruce on the stage, his feet 2 feet off the ground, Iron Mountain's left fist gripping the front of his t-shirt, Bruce's right hand reaching toward Iron Mountain's wrist. The 4,000-person crowd in the foreground, the red lanterns swinging behind them, the moon at 87% full above the stage lights. I have carried this photograph for 52 years. I have looked at it every week. For 52 years, I thought the story was about the fight. Last month, when the doctor told me about the cancer, I looked at it again. I realized I had been wrong for 52 years. The story was never about the fight. The story was about a 5-year-old boy in Sukbatar Square who got a father back because a man in Hong Kong made a phone call to a private investigator on September 7, 1972. The fight was the easy part. The phone call was the miracle. I am setting the photograph on the table now. The camera will tighten on it. This is the last thing I have to say. Bruce knew first. He knew before any of us, before me, before Volkov, before Iron Mountain, before the 4,000 people in Victoria Park. He knew because he had been paying attention to the world. He had been listening to a story nobody else was listening to. He had been reading newspapers from Mongolia. He had been hiring investigators. He had been planning the conversation for 16 days, while the rest of us were planning the festival. That is the lesson I carry now, 52 years later, with 14 months left. The miracle is not the fight. The miracle is the phone call. Pay attention to the world. Make the phone call. Bruce knew first. Batbayar Suk, Coved Province, coming next month.